And now it's time for the Editors Roundtable. It's over to Managing Editor TVTN Rahul Kaval.
Hello and a very warm welcome. This is the big India Today Editors Roundtable. You've seen this on TV, a furious face-off between some of the sharpest minds on TV. What we're going to do today is welcome a special guest, because the big debate at this time is about demonetization and whether it's proven to be more pain than gain. Joining us in this special India Today Editors Roundtable, I want to introduce noted economist and the new person at the helm of the Niti Aayog, Rajiv Kumar. So welcome. I also want to introduce all my colleagues who will join me in questioning Rajiv Kumar. Rajdeep Sardesai, India's foremost political analyst, Rajiv Dubey from India Today magazine. Also with us, Anjana Om Kashyap, India Today TV's National Affairs Editor, Rahul Srivastav, and India Today Magazine Senior Editor, Shweta Punj. Welcome to all our guests. Santosh Garg is also joining us at this time live from the Ministry of Finance. He is the Secretary of the Department of Economic Affairs. The responsibility to ensure that the demonetization proves to be worthwhile is that of Subhash Garg. Welcome to the both our guests. The first question goes to Rajdeep.
Simple question, Mr. Rajiv Kumar. Thank you very much for joining us. Do you accept that the pain of demonetization has been more than the gain, and to that extent, it must today be seen possibly as a serious error of judgment which has seriously and adversely affected the economy?
Well, one, I don't know how do you quantify the pain, because I have not yet seen anything firm about the pain, which is, there are some conjectures about 1% drop in GDP or 0.5% drop in GDP, etc. But that's not the pain. The pain inflicted on the common people, we're standing in queues, etc. You know, they have voted with their feet and they've supported the move, you know, through and through. And I
So, but there is a difference.
But just a second.
One is political validation, the other is economic validation.
Yeah.
You're here as an economist, not as a politician. Was demonetization economically worthwhile?
It is more than worthwhile. I've always supported it, and I will, and even before all these numbers came out, simply because it has helped to bring down inflation, because it curbed conspicuous consumption, which is financed out of all the black income that you and I had. Two, it has brought down the real estate housing prices, so that it has become affordable for the neo middle class for the first time, and there is not this money laundering and all the speculation investment going on in the real estate. And the third one is that for the first time since I have been in Delhi, I have stopped seeing people with illegal incomes strutting about the social evenings. And
Mr. Kumar. Let's go by the hard numbers. Let's go by the Prime Minister. All these points that you said, none of them were mentioned by the Prime Minister on November 8, 2016. He spoke of a Maha Yagna against black money and corruption. When I look at these numbers of the RBI, 99% of the demonetized notes returning to the bank, showing that the early estimates of the huge amount of black money that would be wiped out are way off the mark. At least concede that, and then we can talk.
No, Rajdeep. No, it's just that the black money which was there is now become white money, right? And this is what, and therefore, hang on, it's all in the bank. So the informal incomes have been formalized. You've got 18 lakh.
Is that something I boast about?
One by one.
Okay, one by one.
Rajiv.
The number that Finance Ministry has turned out is 17,526 crore.
Actually seized.
No. Only 1,000. No. What 17,526 crore of undisclosed income, 1,003 crore seized.
No.
And you're talking of 18 lakh accounts that you've investigated.
Hang on.
Right.
Just give me a second.
Yeah.
People had estimated, and I was one of them, that the amount of cash, black income, money, cash floating around in an economy, by any stretch of imagination, which was 10% of the total GDP, was about 5.5 lakh crore.
Yes.
Of which about 3 lakh crore is now in these accounts, which are now within the sight of the government.
Accounts.
Yeah, suspicious, and they are now being
income.
So the onus is today on the.
How much of that you will be able to figure out, disclose? I mean, in 9 months you figured out 17,526 crore of undisclosed income. Total expenditure on this exercise was 17,426 crore. I mean, which is practically makes this exercise almost indefensible.
You see, what effectively we are saying, and I agree with that, which is that we are an ingenious people. The Indians have gamed the system. And therefore, all that money that they had has not been thrown on the streets or burned in bonfires, etc., etc.
Or sent down the Ganga.
Or washing down the Ganga. It has all been safely ensconced in wherever.
No, so these tax evaders then, sir, outsmarted the government, isn't it?
No,
they outsmarted the government.
They didn't outsmart the government.
Let me talk in a layman's term, because these figures tend to confuse people. I'm a voter who did not vote for the BJP in UP. Let's suppose it, because you're going to say that people have already bought demonetization. These people are going to ask you, where is the black money? You had said, please stand in queues, because we are going to get all the black money back into the to the people. But now the black money has become white. So where was the black money?
At least 2.89 lakh crore is not white as you and I understand it. It's at least grey. It's there. And now it's up to the CBDT and the tax department to get their act together to do what they've been claiming, that big data analytics, etc.
Something they never did.
But they will.
Something they never did in this country.
Demonetization also never happened before.
Dr. Kumar.
So the onus is on them, very much so. But the fact is that this money is now no more hidden away, no more black, no more sloshing around in the economy and creating that kind of fizz that we were used to, which is not there. For the first time, you've got an economy which has got some much greater transparency and a sustainable basis.
So black became white with the government's help. That's the bottom line.
Black became grey and will become government and will become government's assets going forward. Yes, the RBI did not get a windfall gain as was expected. That the 3-4 lakh crore will just come down as it will not be returned. That's true. But the fact remains that this informal economy has shrunk, which is causing pain.
You disrupted that entire economy for a 1% potential loss in GDP. For a 1% potential loss in GDP, you have gained very, very little. That's the point.
It's not a potential loss. It is not a potential loss. There has been a 1 percentage point loss in a year when the country attracted record FDI, FIIs, in a year where inflation was under control, in a year where we could really have added on to our GDP. We have actually shaved off 1 percentage point, which is 1.5 lakh crore rupees. So how do you add up the maths here?
I have normally not, but this time I couldn't disagree with you more.
Okay.
The inflation wasn't just coming down. Inflation came down after November because of demonetization. The FDI and FII just wasn't coming in. The fact is that they came in because they knew that they realized, hang on, but the more important...
You cannot attribute FDIs and FIIs coming in because of demonetization.
The bigger point is that for the first time today, your equity market and capital markets are not dependent on the foreign flows because the mutual funds have picked up the funds from the domestic...
Dr. Kumar, that is the point. When all was looking so good, we could have added a percentage point.
No, you don't realize that the household savings which were hidden under the pillow and the mattresses have now finally come into the capital market.
Okay.
And for the first time, your capital market is not dependent and vulnerable to flows, inflows and outflows.
I also want to bring in at this time Subhash Garg, Secretary in the Department of Economic Affairs, because there were 2 or 3 data points that were cited. There were 2 or 3 data points that were cited as example of how demonetization was doing well. One, that the number of the digital transactions were going up. If you look at the latest data that's come from the last couple of months, digital transactions that had shot up are now petering. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, you wanted to suck high value currency out of the economy. If you look at the value of 2,000 rupee notes in the market now, that is more than the value of 1,000 rupees in the market earlier. So high value currency hasn't gone out of circulation either. You got a nice beaming smile on your face, Mr. Garg. A lot of people wonder whether demonetization was worth the pain.
Let me explain to you the second point first, which you just said. The high value currency today in the system is far less than what it was earlier. You just recall the data for 500 and 1,000 rupees notes. It was 15.44 lakh crores, as has been mentioned. What is the currency of 500 and 2,000 rupees note today? It is less than 11.5 lakh crores. So the comparable number of the high value currency notes is today at least about 3 lakh crores or 4 lakh crores less than it was when it was in November 2016. And mind you, this was growing at about 15 to 20%, this high value currency notes. And that growth, if we factor in today, so that currency would have been much more, and at least today it's 40% less than the currency it would have been in the market. So this is a huge blow on the high value currency in the system.
Mr. Garg,
I may also add to what you were asking Dr. Rajiv Kumar earlier. Yeah?
Go on, first complete your point.
Hello?
Also about the fact that digital transactions that had shot up are actually now not at the same
correct.
levels that they were immediately after demonetization.
So yes, digital transactions were about 60 to 70% larger than it was before November. This has somewhat tapered off now. We are taking a lot of other measures which would give a big boost to that process again. So it's not that the journey is over, that big shot which came for digitalization continues. We are continuing at that pace, and now another set of measures would give it further big boost. So digitalization
Rajiv Dubey has a question for you.
as accompanied by the lash cash which I explained earlier.
Mr. Garg, can you give us an idea of what have we achieved on the second objective of counterfeit currency? Because all we are talking about is 7.62 lakh notes in counterfeit currency, and the objective behind counterfeit currency was to stem the the terrorist funding. And we all know that much of terrorist funding doesn't happen necessarily from just counterfeit currency. There's arms, there's drugs, there's contraband, and of course there is illegal gold and stuff that is traded. So what do you make out of the second objective?
Right. In fact, counterfeit currency objective is far better achieved, and in complete success was achieved in the counterfeit currency. The fact that not much currency came into the system when the notes were being deposited indicate that in the process of receiving notes, the system was careful enough to ensure that the counterfeit currency did not come in. That's one. Second, counterfeit currency got stopped at its tracks. The counterfeit currency was not to come into the system. This was not legitimate. So the only way it could have been rooted out was that it was completely put out of circulation. And that is what you see much in evidence. A lot of difference which is made in terms of the terrorist activities in Kashmir, elsewhere, in Naxalites area. All that indicate to you that the FICN or the counterfeit currency was effectively put out of the system.
Okay, Rahul Srivastav has a question for you. Go ahead, Rahul.
What we will like to know, that you are saying that you will like to boost digital habits in the country. The longest question perhaps today has been, since demonetization, that when are you going to remove the charges on digital uses of cards and other payments? You charge people and you want exactly that they should say, no, we will use cards, but we are also ready to pay a charge for it.
Okay, let the Secretary respond.
Yes, you have seen there's been a lot of reduction in the charges which the credit card and other digital modes of payments were suffering earlier. Now we're working very seriously to ensure that cash gets slightly paralyzed, because cash handling also has a lot of costs, and the non-cash, the digital payments get further sort of reduced or eliminated. And we are working on number of ways in which we are working to improve the access infrastructure, reduce the cost thereof. We are working on means which would be far less costlier, like Bharat QR codes, and we are also working on making the frequency of transactions become so that scale brings the lesser cost. So all those measures are in the offing, they are being worked out.
Stay with us, Dr. Rajiv Kumar. The one thing to consider also is that the number of notes coming in from Nepal and the money with cooperatives hasn't yet been counted yet. Now, once this gets added to the 98.96% currency which is already back, you could have achieved a mathematical impossible by actually having got more than 100% of the currency which was originally in circulation.
Well, it's a conjecture that I can't really comment on because I don't know what are the amounts there, because 98.46 is the current figure, and 1% means probably quite a lot. So maybe we will not achieve the mathematical impossibility, but who knows? As I said, it's a conjecture. We'll have to wait for the RBI to do their.
But sir, have you at some stage changed the goalposts? I come back to it. The Prime Minister, the Finance Minister made it very clear in November last year that this was about confiscating money. Yesterday when I heard the Finance Minister, he said this was never about confiscating money. The fact is, the Finance Minister claimed in November last year that going by past experience, about 15 to 20% of the demonetized currency, around rupees 3 lakh crores, was likely to get extinguished and would not return to the system. The Attorney General, Mukul Rohatgi, said the same thing to the Supreme Court as well in the court itself.
That 4 to 5 lakh crores.
Has that been proven wrong? Is there an acceptance at least? At least let's, you can spin the story and there may be some positives out of the story, but do you at least concede that one of those original objectives, which was to get black money back into, was to recover black money, has not actually worked out?
As I responded to Anjana.
Yes, sir.
Which is that, yes, the black money has not been confiscated, but it has become from black to grey. And the same amount, 3 lakh crore, is what you're talking about. But the more important thing, out
of which, as Rajiv Dubey has pointed out, only 1,000 crores has been seized as of today.
17,000. You see, but that's neither here nor there.
For 0.1% of this total amount, 1% GDP loss, was it worth it?
But just listen to me. It is. I think it is just as well that is not, that whole amount of money has not been confiscated, because the amount of social unrest and disruption would have been just impossible to handle. So to that extent, because your trading activity, all that activity, which actually depended upon critically much more, and people have been saying that, your small scale sector, your informal economy, your real estate, etc., could have come to a grinding halt. So in that sense, the government's success in doing a successful transition from, in some sense, you have to call it remonetization. And you don't have to call it note bandi.
Again, you are changing the goalpost. That is precisely. You are changing the goalpost. That is precisely. Demonetization is now being called remonetization.
But Rajiv, the point is that would you rather have had a society which is completely disrupted and people running sort of all over the place, not knowing what to do, than a situation where you've got 3 lakh crores in your sites which you could gather and seize and confiscate?
And timing, as Shweta said, at a time when the economy was poised for an upturn, you did this. Was it because there were UP elections and you wanted to actually target your political rivals?
I have two questions adding to Rajdeep's questions. I have two questions. I'm going to ask you to wear your economist hat.
RBI's only that.
Okay, sure. RBI's dividend to the government is going to be down by 50%.
Yes.
How do you propose will the government make up for this shortfall? Because it's going to obviously show up in the country's macroeconomic fundamentals. Second question.
But let's go over.
Sure.
One, the budget estimates for 2017-18 have plugged the numbers from the RBI at exactly the same figure that is going to give it now. And in fact, I think it's about 500 crore less. And I say that on the basis of the fact that I was at the board meeting of the RBI where this was decided, and there was long discussion at that point of time as to why RBI should not be giving more than what it is now giving. The second thing is that the RBI...
So that means you anticipated that demonetization is actually not going to yield 3 lakh crore rupees. That's what the government was promising, and which is why you budgeted it.
Because the reports are in December of last year itself, you knew that 13 lakh crores had come back, sir.
The budget was in 1st March of 2017-18. The government did not want to, you see, anything that would have come would have been cream on the top, right? Because you can't budget on unrealistic numbers. So I commend the finance minister to have just given us that number, and I forget how much is 62,000 odd crore that, but the second thing is, by the way, that the RBI is transferring that money according to a criteria which was agreed upon by a committee appointed 3 years ago, and which is what they're following to be able to get RBI the kind of credit rating and
Sir, 62,000 crore was last year. This year the RBI will
check that.
Dr. Kumar, how much of this 2.89 lakh crore do you think you can convert from grey to black?
Grey to white, you mean?
Grey to black?
To black?
You have to confiscate black.
Well, I mean, this again, I mean, I have to, and the shoe is firmly on the foot.
10%?
I hope, no, 90.
90%?
Why 10? I mean, this is dubious money. This has all been put into these wretched, Jandhan accounts, because everybody has used that. I have known of so many of my friends who've done this with their domestics and drivers, etc., and all over the villages.
With the collusion of banks.
With the collusion of banks. But
Absolutely.
the point is that for the first time, Raji, you must understand that all this money which was sloshing around has now has been put in and in some sense tethered to the banking system. Yes, if our system is still, if our governance is as weak as we think it is, it won't happen. But that's been the Prime Minister's, that's been the Prime Minister's focus all along.
Okay, Rahul Srivastava has a question for the Secretary.
You see, what is interesting, sir, that when the Prime Minister on November 8th announced the demonetization surprise, at that time, if you look at his speech, there was at least more than a dozen times he linked demonetization of 500 and 1000 rupee notes to black money. There was at least more than a dozen mentioned. There is one very interesting line in which he says that black money has become a menace, and that's why 500 and 1000 rupee notes are being demonetized. Now let's fast forward to where we stand today. Yes, most of the money has come back. Yes, there have been tangible benefits. There are 25 lakh odd suspect transactions. The government knows that digital habits are improving. They might have gone down a bit. The amount of income tax returns has gone up. It has been compared, I think, something close to 25% now compared to 9.9% last year in the same period. There are tangible benefits.
Yes.
Why can't the government admit that it is not a whopping success as the government is trying to say, but it is not a loser? There was perhaps a jolt needed against the habit of black money,
well put.
and the government actually has managed to do that.
Well
Why
put.
paint something which is not a loser as a grand success?
What a nice ending.
What a nice question.
No, I think this is not a correct reading, even in terms of the black money and the terrorist financing objective. Can I go on?
Yeah, yes, sir, please.
Hello?
Yes, sir, go on.
Yes. So, the black money and terrorist financing objective, which was mentioned in the first speech itself, see, the black money could have been sort of tackled or expropriated in two ways. One, the black money couldn't have come into the system, or secondly, it could have come into the system and then become part of the investigation, and you find out that black money is something you can deal with as unaccounted money. So it has come into the system. So the fact that 3.5 lakh crore is suspected to be unaccounted, is that part of the black money? And a good part of it, we already have about 20,000 crores seized out of that. The remaining are being investigated.
So all that has happened is the color has changed.
Part of that.
Sorry to intervene. All that has happened is the color has changed. Pink is the new color of black.
Success. And I said about the terrorist earlier.
So why not accept with 2,000 rupee high denomination notes now flowing just as easily as they were earlier? The fact is only the color of money has changed. That's really what's happened. Until you are able to show that you've actually seized this money and you're able to show this was undisclosed income, why not accept that some of the objectives were not met? What stops the government at times from not being so euphoric about everything? There's nothing wrong in telling the people maybe we got this wrong.
Subhash, can I just intervene here?
Yeah.
You know that the amount of currency now in the economy is about 11% less than what it was earlier. So the cash to GDP ratio is now much lower than it was earlier. And one of the reasons for that is the demonetization and the fact that the cash use has gone down. So to say that the pink has now replaced the blue or whatever,
Rajiv,
I don't think is quite correct.
Shweta has a question.
I have a question for Mr. Garg. It's actually ironic that we have two representatives from the government trying to convince us that whether demonetization has been a success or not. Was this a Government of India decision or was this an RBI decision? Because ideally this should have been an RBI decision. And this is to both of you.
Okay, let the Secretary take that first. Mr. Garg.
This is the government, let's face it, this is a government decision. RBI was the agency which was consulted, which formalized, but in real terms, this was a government decision. There's no doubt about it.
Recommended.
It was supposed to go to the board. It went to the board.
Mr. Garg,
let me also clarify on one of the points which was earlier come up.
Mr. Garg, I do want to make this rather serious point.
Yes.
That this myth about the RBI central bank autonomy, which is a typically Anglo-American model of working economics, and not at all, if you like to see, if I might like to say, an Asian way of doing things, whether it's Japan, Korea, China, or whatever, is something that we take too far. RBI is very much a part of the government. The RBI governor is appointed by the government. The RBI governor actually is a member of the FIDC, which is chaired by the finance ministry. So yes, the RBI autonomy on technical matters like the MPC and the inflation targeting, etc., which are now statutory, is respected and recognized by the government. But to think about Mint Road as being totally at loggerheads or a different or a complete on its own sort of.
But are you saying that on a major decision like this, RBI is subservient to the
as the secretary said, the RBI was consulted. Of course, it was consulted. The RBI board recommended the measure, but he himself said that a measure like this has to be a sovereign decision.
Okay, I have a question now for the secretary and for you, sir, but I want to begin with you and ask you the question. I want to give you another choice because it started with detecting black money, eliminating fake currencies, squeezing the funds, going for terror, less cash, digitization push. But yes, tax base has gone up a little, less black money, less cash. This is what the government is claiming. I want to give you another two options because there was a whole theory and a lot of facts also supporting it. Was it done to bail out the banks? Was it a step taken to bail out the banks and also to integrate the informal and the formal system as we see in this Indian economy? So I want to start with you, sir, Rajiv, sir. Was it also done to bail out the banks?
The demonetization?
Yeah.
To remonetize the bank, she's saying.
Not at all. In fact, the banks are in a bit of a difficulty because of the huge amount of liquidity that they have on their hands. Their profitability has gone down. And so has the profitability of the RBI as is available in the annual report. So there's nothing of this.
To be honest, sir, I know I don't want to add an emotional pitch to this, but more than 100 people actually, there were reports about 150 or whatever. We don't have the exact figures. Some were not well or whatever. But a lot of people actually lost their lives. We saw women queuing up at different places. Very difficult situations.
Despite trying, you are attaching a huge emotive.
But it was.
And I don't want to give you. And I don't want to give you. I don't want to give you a very terse economist kind of an answer. Yes, all those are very unfortunate. It could have been perhaps better governance, it could be better handled. But please also remember
versus the achievement.
Please remember that.
Are you nervous before joining tomorrow? Do you think that these are things that will be put forth all the time?
I'm very nervous for the first time after very long years. For joining tomorrow, but for completely different reasons.
No, but let me add to the emotional tinge. What would you tell the families of those who lost their lives in the queues, who suffered, the small and medium enterprises which have collapsed, informal sector? Now, we are not going into numbers, but even if there is one, even if there's one individual, there are reports there were 100 people who died in the queues. There are other reports which suggest dozens of businesses in small and medium enterprises have suffered. What would you tell them today? What did they gain? What did that person in Surat gain? What did that person who was standing in a bank queue gain, sir?
Industrial output has crashed, as you know very well. Services sector growth has slowed down. What are the tangible benefits that we are talking about here? Everything is very intangible and very long term.
The tangible benefit, Shweta, is to give to this economy a fundamentally different macroeconomic base, which is now based on transparent, honest income generation and does not have this completely completely opaque sort of economic activity that is going on, where everything was overstated by 30, 40, 50% and people did not know. The tangible benefit is a growth of something like what, 25% in your tax base. I mean, I had been saying this to finance ministers after finance ministers, that 35 lakh, 3.5 million households paying direct tax in India is crazy. You can find that number in West India.
There are other ways to increase the tax base, sir. Other less disruptive ways.
Hello. Did you find one? Did any other finance minister find one? I mean, all these are complete conjectures, Rajiv. Please acknowledge the benefits that you've had.
Rajiv, I like to come in here.
47% increase.
You are going to head the planning body of this country.
No, not really the planning body. No, Niti Aayog. Hello.
It is planning body.
No, it's not a planning. Okay. It's not a planning body.
That plan the future of this country.
Policy.
There is a let's ignore the deaths for a while. Politically, the issue has been settled. UP has been won despite demonetisation. I would like to know one thing. Despite demonetisation. The fact is that this is the second example in the current history of this country that the banking system faces huge questions. You have Malayas running away with money. People were colluding. Now you have everybody in the finance ministry will tell you, in whispers of course, that the banking system colluded with the black marketeers to absorb that money into the system, make it into the dirty shade of grey or black, whatever you want to call it. But the fact is that as somebody who is going to create nitis from tomorrow onwards, are you going to suggest radical changes in the banking system, that this system is perhaps responsible for one, the failure or the partial success of demonetisation and the huge economic crisis banks face, and all of us get less returns, we have crisis in our banking structure? Are you going to suggest that?
That the banking system, Indian banking system is in problem is not something new. It's very well known, right? The fact is that the banking system needs radical solution is also very well known. But here is a question of almost saying that, what we need to do is very well known. How is the question? And that, I think, it defines, as far as I understand, the role of the Niti Aayog, which is to find effective, practical and India-suitable measures to get these things moving.
Okay.
And that's a complex
what we need
scenario.
to do now.
But we will do that. We will do that. But nonetheless, it will take time. And however, the public sector banking system does need a very thorough review and measures to bring it up to scratch.
Okay, what we need to do now is take a very quick break. I must commend Dr. Rajiv Kumar. He's got 6 editors going after him, and he's doing a good job. So this is, first day, you're having to pull on your initiation by fire.
He's well prepared to be a very effective Niti Aayog chairperson.
No, and he's got
a vice chairperson. Vice chairperson.
My God. He can switch his economist hat, throwing in a little bit of politics on the side. Which helps as well. Yeah. Okay, Subhash Garg is with us. I know you have a briefing in about 30 minutes from now, so we'll keep you only for a short while more. We're slipping into a break. We're also hoping to be joined by former Union Finance Minister P. Chidambaram. He's promised to join us on the India Today Editors Roundtable Live. So Dr. Rajiv Kumar, put on your boxing gloves.